On the evening of the 14th of December, 2021, in New Smyrna Beach, a man named Jeff stood on a public sidewalk, holding a sign that read, "God bless the homeless vets," insisting that he was not asking for money or doing anything illegal. But after a restaurant called police and accused him of bothering customers, Officer Galt and Officer Batty arrived. What began as a simple contact quickly escalated when Jeff was ordered to provide identification, placed in handcuffs, and disarmed of a firearm he said he was legally carrying. After the incident, Sergeant Richard Kirkland, the supervisor on duty, was asked to conduct a review and examine the entire encounter. When video recorded by Jeff, the officer's body cameras, and the reports were compared, a serious issue began to emerge. Jeff had been standing on a public sidewalk, and there was no clear indication that he had committed a crime. Kirkland later concluded that the officers had no legal basis to detain Jeff or seize his property, and confirmed that his civil rights had been violated. However, Kirkland also believed that Galt and Batty had not acted intentionally or maliciously, but were primarily operating under the mistaken belief that asking for money was against the law. What began with a call about a man holding a sign on a sidewalk quickly became an internal investigation that raised serious questions about police authority, civil rights, and the accountability of those entrusted with enforcing the law.
They don't want you up front.
Who doesn't want anything?
The business.
Oh. See that for this?
Huh?
See that for this?
Why? They said you're asking the customers for money and stuff like that.
Oh, God bless them. So.
Okay, well, they don't want you up front of the business.
Okay. I don't want you up in front of the business.
Okay, well, that's not how this is
So
going
you
to
can
go.
go get in your car and leave?
No.
I'll give you 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Have a nice night.
They just don't want you up here anymore.
I don't care. They don't have the authority to tell me not to be here.
They said you're asking for money and stuff like that.
That's what they said. It's hearsay.
Huh?
It's hearsay.
That's...
I say I'm not asking for money.
Okay, well, they said you're up front. So can you just go somewhere else?
No.
Why?
Because I'm not going somewhere. I'll put it in my heart to stand right here. I'm going to stand right here.
Okay, but they don't want you blocking the sidewalk and stuff.
I'm not blocking the sidewalk.
Okay, you have your ID on you?
I don't have any ID on me there.
Okay.
And if I did, I wouldn't give it to you anyway.
Alright, well, you need to just move along. That's all they want you to do.
Nope, not happening.
Why?
Because I'm just saying God bless someone's vets.
Okay, yeah, and you have the right to do that.
Yeah.
They just don't want you in front of their business. I mean, is there a reason why you're up here?
God put it in my heart to be here.
No, is there a reason why you're in front of this business?
Yeah. God put it in my heart to stand right here and say God bless someone's vets.
Well, is there a reason why you're in front of this business?
Not particularly this business. I'm just on the public sidewalk.
Okay, and you're not asking for money?
I am not asking for money.
Okay, your sign doesn't say it, so I don't know. I mean, have you asked anybody for money?
But, I mean, I'll tell you, my name is Jeff. What's your name?
Officer Galt.
Officer what?
Galt.
Galt?
Yes, sir.
G-A-U-L-T?
G-A-O-T.
Okay, G-A-U-L-T.
And you haven't asked for money or anything like that?
I'm not going to answer your question.
Okay. Can I just see the back of your sign? Alright. Can I just get your first and last name real quick?
My first name is Jeff, and beyond that, I'm not answering for the question.
Why not?
I'm not answering for the question.
I mean, you're making this more complicated than it has to be.
No, I'm not. I'm standing here on the sidewalk saying God bless someone's veterans.
I know, but you just...
Identify you.
I'm not identifying myself.
So you're going to end up going to jail.
I told him my name is Jeff, and that's all I'm giving you.
No, if you want to give us your information, then that's fine. But we still have to
Am I being
identify.
detained at this point?
Yes.
For what?
For the identification of you, which is an investigation that they started.
I'm not giving any identification. I'd like to remain silent.
Okay. At this point, you're being detained. Okay. So, let me see this. Do you have anything in your pockets that don't poke, stab, or anything?
Since you're asking me if I have anything in my pockets, I am armed lawfully.
Okay.
Concealed carry permit.
Okay. Where's it at?
Here's my hands. It's in my pocket.
In your front pocket?
Yeah. Here's my hands.
Right. Perfect.
Matter of fact, why don't you guys just put me in cuffs? I don't want any.
Yeah.
Since I'm armed, I don't want any.
I don't want. You're good.
Good.
I have to double cuff you?
Yes, sir. I gotta get your cuffs.
I'm telling you guys, I'm not going to be.
On the 24th of December 2021, Sergeant Richard Kirkland entered the Professional Standards Office to answer questions about the incident. He was identified as a witness in the internal investigation, but his account quickly became a key part of the case. The original call had only reported a man who was allegedly bothering customers and asking for money that night.
New Smyrna Beach Police Department, Office of Professional Standards. This will be a taped interview in reference to IA case number 2021-006. Today's date is Friday, December 24th, 2021, and the time is 7:03 p.m. The location of this interview is the Command Staff Conference Room at the New Smyrna Beach Police Department. Presently being interviewed is Sergeant Richard Kirkland. I am Lieutenant Mark Severance with the New Smyrna Beach Police Department. Are you aware this interview is being recorded?
I am.
As a Florida law enforcement officer in Notary Public of the State of Florida, I'm empowered to take sworn statements. At this time, I'd ask you to raise your right hand to be sworn, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the statement you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You are being interviewed as a witness to an internal affairs investigation. Since you are not the focus of the investigation, neither union representation or an attorney need be present to represent you. You are required to answer all questions pertaining to your actions or knowledge obtained while an employee of the City of New Smyrna Beach Police Department. Failure to answer any questions may subject you to departmental charges. If any time during this interview you feel that your answers might result in disciplinary action being taken against you, so advise me and the interview will be stopped until representation is obtained. Do you understand that?
I do.
Okay. So, on December 14th, 2021, there was a CAD call asking for police to respond to 143 Canal Street in reference to a suspicious person. Are you familiar with that call?
I am.
Were you working as the Bravo shift supervisor that evening?
I was.
So you were filling in for another supervisor,
Yes,
correct?
I was on overtime. Correct.
Can you recall the details or circumstances of that suspicious person call?
Yes, I do.
What were they?
The suspicious person call came out, was dispatched to Galt about a male bothering customers and asking for money. I don't know how far you want me to go. Galt responds, and that's the circumstances
Okay.
of the call. That's all we know as far as the call goes.
Okay, so to you, it was pretty nondescript, just a person
Correct.
Bothering customers?
Yes.
Okay. Were you ever contacted by Officer Galt or Officer Beatty during the time frame of this call for service?
I was contacted by Officer Beatty after the call for service, not during it. The subject had already left the scene by the time he called me, but yes.
Okay, so you had no knowledge of what was going on at the scene at the time when either Officer Galt was there or Officer Beatty was there?
Correct. Yeah, I thought it was just a suspicious person. They were going to move along, or
Okay.
that was it.
So, you said Officer Beatty calls you believe, at the end of his interaction
Correct.
with this person.
Yes.
Okay, can you describe the phone conversation that you had with Officer Beatty?
Yeah, he said that he was just calling to inform me about what happened. He said that he was handling a panhandler call. So obviously, immediately I was kind of thinking, what do you mean by panhandler call? He says that the subject was standing on city property and had a sign that said, God bless homeless veterans. He said that the male was refusing to identify himself, and that he had a firearm, but he did have a valid concealed weapons permit. I asked him, what happened. He explains to me that basically he and Galt detained the male with handcuffs. They disarmed him and confirmed that he had a valid concealed weapons permit, and that in doing so they were able to identify him, and ultimately they let him go. I asked Beatty why he was detained, And he told me that he was detained because he was refusing to identify himself. And I said, well, for what crime are you investigating? And he said that he was investigating panhandling. And he said, it's against city ordinance. And I told him, no, it's not against city ordinance. And he said, well, it's against state statute as well. And I said, it's not against state statute. And I told him, I said that from what you're telling me, it sounds like you had no legal authority to seize the gentleman or his firearm, disarm him, even run his name. It doesn't sound like he was doing anything wrong.
What was Beatty's reaction to that on the phone?
He seemed kind of like taken back, like kind of shocked. Like he didn't, I don't think he grasped that I was telling him that it was not illegal. I think he truly thought it was illegal and was kind of stammering for a second. And then at one point hold on one second, let me refer to the report here. I forget, he did say something. He did try to tell me that that he didn't tell him about the concealed weapons permit at the same time he told him about the gun. So he was basically trying to paint the picture that, well, he told me he had a gun, so I was just going to seize the gun and make it more of an officer safety thing. And I told him that still does not work. If you don't have a crime to investigate, you can't seize the person.
A significant detail emerged when Kirkland described his conversation with Officer Batty. According to Kirkland, Batty said the man had been handcuffed, disarmed, and then had his permit checked. Kirkland immediately recognized a legal gap. If there was no clear criminal conduct, holding the man and taking his property required some other legal justification.
Investigate, you can't seize the person. And it ultimately turned out the guy did tell him he had a concealed weapons permit anyway. So.
Okay, are you aware of the duration of this interaction, the call?
Well, the call came out at 19:27 hours, and I got the phone call at 19:57, so literally right at a half hour.
Okay.
From the time dispatch to the time Beatty's calling me, so I would say shorter, maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes. Something.
Okay. Obviously, since you weren't there, you don't have a lot of details as to what happened based on the phone call that you got from Beatty, other than what he told you. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, now, obviously, after the fact, I met with you, you being the supervisor that night, and asked you to conduct a supervisory inquiry. That was on the following day, December 15th. And you entered your findings into an incident summary and submitted it for further review. Can you provide a synopsis of the key findings in that document and walk us through what happened?
Sure. So the ultimate findings are that the gentleman was not creating a crime, or was not committing a crime. He was completely within his rights. He was on a public sidewalk, and he was simply holding a sign saying, "God bless the homeless vets." Wasn't doing anything illegal or suspicious for that matter. They did not have a right to detain him, to seize him, his property, or anything. That was my ultimate findings. The way I got to those findings is I reviewed the video that was recorded by the subject and posted to social media. I also reviewed both body-worn cameras from Officer Galt and Officer Beatty. Essentially, Officer Galt gets on scene first. He goes to make contact with the male. He tries to summon the male over to him. The male didn't really appear to respond, so he approaches the male, and they have a brief interchange where Officer Galt basically tries to get him to move along and tries to give him some. The male challenges him and says, "I don't have to move along." I don't know if you want me to get into exact words and stuff, or you just want me to kind of give the...
No, did Officer Galt make contact with the business owner or the manager?
Not until after he had this, verbal kind of back and forth with the subject. I believe that he thought he was just going to walk up to the subject and ask him to move along, as we do on a lot of calls, and if the guy doesn't have a problem with it, moves along, no harm, no foul. Well, in this case, the gentleman says, "I have a right to be here, I'm not going to." So you can see Galt kind of is taken back a little bit, and he said, "Okay, well, let me go in and talk to the manager." So he does go in and talk to the bar staff. He tells them, the guy says that he's not going to move and that, he's on the sidewalk. I believe the bar manager tells him, well, he was on our property, and
So there was some dispute over what was their property, what was public property.
Correct. It appeared from watching the video that the bar manager, the reporting party, that I believe his name is Axel, thought that the entire sidewalk belonged to their business. It clearly doesn't. It's a public sidewalk, and the subject was actually standing on the farthest away on the sidewalk he could be from the business. He was literally out by where the parallel parking is.
Okay, let's back up for a minute. In your review of the body-worn camera videos and the YouTube video, primarily the YouTube video, before our officers arrive, did you see the RP Axel speak with this subject?
Yes, he initially tries to handle this incident himself. He goes out and asks him to move along, tells him he can't be there, and of course the gentleman says that he can. He has every right to be there. He's on a public sidewalk. The Axel guy kind of challenges him and says, "No, this is our sidewalk," and he said, "No, it's not." And basically, when he meets the resistance, Axel says, "Well, fine, I'll just have to call the police then." And so he goes back in the bar. And
Okay, that brings us back to where we're at then.
Yeah.
And so Officer Galt talks to Axel inside the bar, and then what happens?
he also called for Officer Beatty to respond
Okay.
as backup. And he basically, the end of the conversation is, "Well, I'm just gonna have to wait for my backup to get here." So he goes back outside. He again confronts the guy, and Officer Beatty comes up on scene. You can see Officer Beatty pull in. He parks across the street on a perpendicular road there, and
So when Officer Beatty arrives, what does Officer Galt do first?
he walks over to Beatty's car and tells him, let me see here. Let's see exactly what they said. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
As Kirkland reconstructed the scene, the story began to separate into several layers. Officer Galt made the initial contact, told the man to leave, and then went inside to speak with management. The issue came down to the boundary between private business property and the public sidewalk, where the man was standing and believed he had the right to remain.
Okay. Officer Beatty pulls on scene. Galt explains that he's, as they're walking up to the subject, that the subject's saying it's his constitutional right to be stand where he's standing. If the manager of the business says one of his waitresses was afraid to go outside, and I guess wait on the tables. There's a couple tables outside. So that was literally what Galt told him.
Okay. So then what happens after they both approach the subject again?
So then Beatty kind of takes over the call at this point. He makes contact with the guy and does acknowledge and says that he's on a public sidewalk, but the business said that he was begging for money. Beatty had not made contact with the RP. He's just going off at this point of what was said in the CAD call from dispatch. So he said that panhandling is against the law and he can't be panhandling out there.
Okay.
The gentleman says that he wasn't panhandling and that he was within his rights to be there. And do you want me to just?
Yes, continue.
Okay.
Yeah.
So ultimately, the guy, or Beatty, tells the guy that he can't be there and that he needs his name and information. The guy says that he's not going to identify himself. They go back and forth a few times. Beatty, basically tells him, threatens him that he's going to go to jail if he doesn't give him his identification because he's there investigating a crime to which he claims the business started the complaint. So the male, I think, could see that he was going to be put into handcuffs, so he alerts the officers that, or at least he perceived he was going to be put into handcuffs, I should say. He alerts the officers that he is armed, and that he lawfully armed, he has a concealed weapons permit, and he kind of puts his arms out in front of him.
Okay.
Officer Beatty, and he makes it an exaggerated movement. He says, "Here's my hands out here," and Officer Beatty goes to, take the gun out of his pocket. I think that the male maybe felt a little uncomfortable with the officer is taking the gun out of his pocket with his hands just being there.
Right.
So he actually suggests, you guys, maybe I should be put in handcuffs. So then you see Officer Galt, that's when he comes in and puts the guy in handcuffs while Beatty's retrieving the firearm, and then ultimately searches the mail, locates, I believe, some magazines in another pocket, and that sort of thing. The mail, during the detention and search says, I do not consent to any searches or seizures. He's told them several times that, he's within his rights and this is a violation of his rights. He was, basically broadcasting that.
So after they handcuff him in front of the New Smyrna Brewery there, what happens?
Well, I forgot to note, as they were going to handcuff him, Officer Beatty takes his sign out of his hand and puts it on the pole.
Yeah.
I don't know if that really is of note, but ultimately they walk him across the street to where Officer Beatty parked his patrol car.
Okay.
Officer Beatty is explaining to him that this is the reason as to why he's getting arrested, or why he's been detained, I should say, not arrested.
Right.
And the guy says, well, since you have my firearm, I'll go ahead and let you get my concealed weapons permit. And he tells him it's in my wallet, in my pocket. He directs Beatty to the wallet and ultimately Beatty gets his concealed weapons permit. He uses that to identify him by name and date of birth. He runs him on teletype and confirms that he's not wanted. He doesn't run the concealed weapons permit number to verify that it's valid.
Okay.
But he does verify that the mail is not wanted. So he uses that to say, okay, now, since you've identified yourself, I'm going to let you go, basically. That's when they unsecure him. Beatty actually hands him his firearm back and tells him to put it in his pocket. Again, you can see the subject's kind of uncomfortable with that, but
Right.
ultimately he does take the gun, put it in his pocket, and again, pronounces his hand movement, saying, I think he put it up on the police car, so I'm gonna leave my hand right here. And then Beatty went to go make contact with the business.
Okay. So Beatty goes into the business and makes contact with the manager, Axel. Is that correct?
Yes.
Can you describe that interaction?
Let me,
Yeah, you can refer to your report.
Beatty asks if he was immediately asked the manager, was the male seen asking for money? And the bar manager said, no, I don't think he was asking for money, but he was, reiterates that one of his waitresses was nervous to go outside or whatever. Beatty then says immediately that he's going to call the sergeant, me, to kind of, I guess, run it by me. But if he was not on their property, not asking for money, there wasn't much that he could do. He couldn't make him leave. So he kind of was telling the guy, if he's not asking for money, then we have no law violation, and I can't make him move along or anything.
Okay.
In his mind is what he
Right.
was thinking. Then that's when Officer Beatty leaves and goes back to the car. I forgot to mention, actually, let me go back.
Okay.
When they escorted him over to the car, the guy did make a statement. He said, I just want to put you guys on notice that you're violating my constitutional rights, and that I would proceed, or if I were you, I would proceed with caution from here forward, something to those lines.
Another detail that made the encounter more tense was that the man warned officers that his rights were being violated, yet police continued operating under the assumption that asking for money was illegal. Only after verifying his identity and discovering that he was not wanted did they remove the handcuffs and return his firearm.
And Beatty, kind of argues with him and tells him, no, we're not violating your rights because you were panhandling and so on
Okay.
and so forth. So ultimately, Beatty comes back over and the guy's already unhandcuffed as before. He's got his gun. He tells him, since you weren't panhandling and asking for money, and I already identified you, basically that he wasn't going to be detained any further. And the guy asked if he was free to leave. He had originally asked for a card from Beatty. Beatty said he would go get him a card, and he goes in the car. That's actually when Beatty calls me, and the subject, I think, was kind of almost maybe tired of waiting, and he asked Officer Galt for what their names were,
Right.
and then he just says, I don't need a card, I'll just leave, and then he walks away.
Okay. Going back to Officer Galt, if I'm going to ask you a couple questions.
Okay.
If Officer Galt had not called Officer Beatty to come to the scene, what do you think would have happened?
It appeared to me that Officer Galt kind of knew he was in over his head. I don't think he really knew how to proceed. That's why he called for backup. I think he was relying on a more senior officer to kind of guide him on what to do. If he did not do that, I would like to think that he would have called me and or the corporal, one or the other. Actually, there was no corporal working that night, so call me for advice on how to proceed.
Okay.
I don't see Officer Galt going to the extent that Officer Beatty did on his own. He clearly had that opportunity several times. He went back into the business, I think, twice. He wasn't forcing the issue at all.
Did he
was
talk
just
to any
kind of-
customers outside about what was going on? You recall?
Yeah, there was one customer that was said he had been out there the whole time, and I think he asked him. I'm not 100% sure, but I think he asked him if he saw him asking for money, and the guy said no. He's just been there the whole time.
Okay.
I'd have to go back and look at the video. Nothing that really jumps out at me, but yeah, I think he did.
Let me back up here. Did Officer Galt ever mention anything about panhandling? Do you recall that? At the beginning of his interaction with the subject?
Look at my report here.
Okay.
He did. He tells him, the subject tells Officer Galt that he's on the public sidewalk and is just saying, "God bless the homeless vets." Galt tells him that he cannot stand in the same place and say the same thing over and over. Then goes on to tell him that he cannot beg for money because it's against city ordinance.
Okay.
The male told Galt that he was not begging for money and that it would still be illegal because that city ordinance would be unconstitutional if it existed.
Okay, we've already talked about Officer Beatty and the phone call part that happened. Do you feel that Officer Beatty and Officer Galt believe that panhandling was currently a city ordinance?
Absolutely. They both said it non-prompted on their body-worn cameras at separate times. I don't know where they would get that impression or where they may have learned that, but they definitely were under the impression that they did have legal authority to seize him based on that assumption. I don't think either one of them did anything intentionally wrong. I think that they were more or less ignorant that the fact that is that panhandling is just not illegal. We can't be detained based on that. So I think they were just operating on bad assumptions.
Okay. Do you think that Officer Beatty made the decision to detain this subject because of his refusal to identify himself?
Yes, I think that Officer Beatty thought that he had the legal right to identify him because he was, in his mind, investigating a crime, and that's why he was ultimately going to detain him. It kind of took a weird turn because Beatty went for the gun immediately instead of going for handcuffs immediately, and then the male ultimately asked to be handcuffed.
Right.
So it was, but I do think that he was absolutely going down that path. That's what he was going to do.
Okay. Can you summarize the policy violation? You proffered a couple of policy violations. The one, can you read that from the record there? The group 2.
The group 2M, violation of rules, orders, etc., issued by the city commission. It's basically he violated our rules and policies and procedures, regulations by ultimately going against what he did for preliminary and follow-up investigations. He basically detained someone without the legal authority to do so. So clearly in violation of that policy. As far as Officer Galt, I do think that he also had a duty to recognize that what was going on was not okay. But again, I think he was naive and ignorant to the fact that panhandling is not against the law, and we cannot enforce a panhandling complaint by detaining people. So I think that they were operating under the impression that what they were doing was correct, but were just misinformed.
Okay, I'm just going to ask you straight. Are you of the opinion that Officer Beatty and Officer Galt violated this subject's civil rights based on your review of the video evidence?
Yes, they absolutely did. Again, I don't think it was intentional or malicious. I think that they thought what they were doing was right, and that it just simply wasn't the case.
Okay, do you have anything further you'd like to add to this?
No, I don't think so.
After reviewing video from multiple sources, Kirkland reached a clear conclusion about the officer's responsibility. He believed Officer Batty and Officer G had exceeded their authority by detaining the man, although he did not believe they had acted maliciously. In his view, the mistake began with an incorrect legal assumption. That was the critical point.
IA number 2021-006. Officer Brett Galt, ID number 1816. I am Lieutenant Mark Severance with the New Smyrna Beach Police Department. Today's date is Friday, December 31st, 2021, and the current time is 17:34 hours. The location of this interview is the Office of Professional Standards conference room located at the New Smyrna Beach Police Department. Officer Galt declined to have union representation or legal counsel present for this interview. Officer Galt, are you aware that this interview is being recorded?
Yes.
I'm conducting an official administrative investigation concerning City of New Smyrna Beach Policies and Procedures, Section X, Group 2, Section M, violating the rules, orders, and policies issued and adopted by the City Commission, City Manager, and/or Department Head. Specifically, Policy and Procedure Directive 15-2, Preliminary and Follow-up Investigations, Section 15.2.7, which talks about investigative detentions. As a Florida law enforcement officer and notary public of the state of Florida, I am empowered to take sworn statements. At this time, I would ask that you raise your right hand to be sworn. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the statement you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Any false statements about material matters given by a witness under oath will constitute perjury, which is a third-degree felony, according to Section 837.02 Florida statutes. Do you understand that if you knowingly make material misstatements of facts to me during this investigation, you will have committed the crime of perjury?
I do.
Okay, I'm going to sign this, and I'm going to have you sign it. If you would sign it there and date it at the bottom. Yeah, 31st. Okay, thank you. Advisement of rights for a disciplinary interview, otherwise called the Garrity warning. I wish to advise you that you are being questioned as part of an official investigation of the New Smyrna Beach Police Department. You will be asked questions specifically directed and narrowly related to the performance of your official duties or fitness for office. You are entitled to all rights and privileges guaranteed by the laws and the Constitution of this state and the Constitution of the United States, including the right not to be compelled to incriminate yourself. I further wish to advise you that if you refuse to testify or to answer questions relating to the performance of your official duties or fitness for duty, it will be considered an act of insubordination and a violation of a direct order by superior or competent authority. If you do answer, neither your statements nor any information or evidence which is gained by reason of such statements can be used against you in any subsequent criminal proceeding, except for perjury or obstruction of justice charges. However, these statements may be used against you in relation to the subsequent department charges. The aforementioned advisement of rights is not the warning in criminal cases under the Miranda decision. As mentioned, Miranda has no application in a disciplinary interview. Understand?
Sir.
Okay. Sign, date, and I'll put the location there. Okay. Okay, for the record, please state your name, rank, and current duty assignment.
Officer Brett Galt, patrol officer,
What shift do you work?
Bravo shift.
Bravo shift.
Yep.
Have you reviewed the USB drive files, documents, recorded interviews, YouTube videos, BWC videos, the central dispatch radio and phone calls I provided you on Monday, December 27th, 2021?
Yes, sir.
Okay, before we go on, I'd like to say that obviously everything that on this particular incident was captured either on the subject's video, YouTube videos that have been posted, as well as your BWC and Officer Beatty's BWC. So, you know, as we talk about these questions and stuff, you know, if you say something that isn't exactly what you said on the video, that's not an issue. The issue, you know, we want to get to the core of it, right?
Right.
Okay.
It was then Officer Brett G's turn, as the investigator began examining whether his account matched what had been recorded. G said he arrived after receiving information about a man dressed in black who was allegedly asking for money. But from the beginning, an important question emerged. What exactly was he investigating?
Okay, at approximately 1927 hours on Tuesday, December 14th, 2021, were you dispatched to a call for service identified as a suspicious person, call number P2134-82050 at the New Smyrna Brewery located at 143 Canal Street?
Yes.
Did you read the call notes while en route to the call?
Yes.
What did they tell you?
The call note started out saying that there was a male dressed in all black, black shirt, black jacket, and originally he was asking for money from people that sat in there, and that's all I read because I was right around the corner from the scene, so I didn't take long to get there, and that's what dispatch advised what was going on to over the radio.
Okay. So what crime were you intending to investigate there?
Well, at that point they said that he was at or in the business asking for money, and the business owner just wanted him to be moved along, and they didn't want anything to happen to him. But at that point, he was in the business asking people for money, as far as I understood from that point.
Okay.
I understood from that point.
Okay. Do they call that panhandling or asking for money is what it said in the call notes?
Yes.
Is panhandling a crime or a city ordinance violation?
It's not a city ordinance violation.
Okay. Upon your arrival on scene, what did you observe?
A black male, or not a black, a white male dressed in all black, standing on the sidewalk behind the car, holding a sign and walking back and forth up and down the sidewalk.
Okay. When you made contact with, we'll call him Mr. Gray because we ultimately did identify him during the encounter. Can you describe the interaction you had with him?
I was just trying to be like people, like I am on most calls, just trying to get to know who he was, what his purpose was there. He was really blunt, not like straight up, not like asking or answering my just questions, just normal questions I had. Just what are you doing there? Is there a purpose you're up here? Stuff like that. He was just keeping to himself at that point.
Okay. What did he tell you he was doing?
That he was just whatever the sign was like. God bless the homeless vets. He was just trying to make people aware that God needs to bless the homeless vets.
Okay.
And he just kept going on that topic.
Where was he at when you first encountered him?
On the sidewalk, by the car, by the light post.
By the curb?
Yeah. by
Where the
curb.
car's parked?
Yeah.
Okay. Why did you ask Mr. Gray to move along or leave the area?
The business owner said initially saying that he was asking his customers for money. He just didn't want them up front of his business.
Okay. What was Mr. Gray's response?
He said he wasn't going to move. He said he has the right to be there, and he didn't feel like moving along.
Okay. Was he holding a sign that said, "God bless the homeless vets"?
Yes.
The investigation began reaching its central point. The officer admitted that he had relied on a legal assumption that had never been verified. The man was standing on a public sidewalk, holding a sign and asking for money. but that conduct did not automatically constitute a violation. That assumption set the stage for the series of decisions that followed.
Why did you ask Mr. Gray for identification or to otherwise identify himself?
It's usually on calls that we go to, we try to identify everyone, and I was just trying to get to know who he was, just so I can identify him and say that I made contact with this man in front of this business, and the business owner just wanted him moved along at that point.
So what did Mr. Gray tell you?
That he was not going to provide ID.
Okay. Did he tell you anything about himself, or?
He said his first name was Jeff.
Okay. Was there any dispute over what was public property or sidewalk, or what was owned by the business?
Further down the investigation, yeah, the business owner was not aware of what his boundaries were of the sidewalk. We later found that out.
Okay.
He wasn't aware of what, like, the line was.
Who wasn't aware?
The business owner.
Okay. So that kind of leads into my next question. At this location, did you know what was public property and what was business property? Roughly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could imagine that any certain feet off the curb is still owned by the city due to being public road, and then the public sidewalk, obviously, and then whatever the business had the benches were, I was assuming was the business
Okay.
property.
All right. Why did you tell Mr. Gray that asking for money is technically against city ordinance?
At that point, I thought panhandling was a city ordinance violation.
Okay, so it was your belief that it was?
Yes, sir.
Where did you get that?
I thought that early on in training that we had a call, and there was people asking for money, and I thought that we looked up a city ordinance violation that was panhandling, and it's not a city ordinance violation. It's a state statute actually. So,
For, what's the state statute refer to?
like if you're blocking, like stepping out in traffic, blocking people's right to move.
So it's a 316 violation for some type of impediment of traffic.
Right.
If
It's a
you're
traffic violation.
soliciting or entering traffic patterns, right? That wasn't the case here, was it?
No.
Okay. Did you speak with the reporting party inside the business?
I did.
So describe your conversation with him.
I asked him, I was like, hey, just give me a rundown what's going on. He initially was like, oh, he was up talking to people at the table, asking them for money, and then when my waitress went out, he went on to say that he was harassing her, and he wouldn't go into detail of that, and the waitress didn't want to go into detail about that either.
Okay.
So at that point, I went back out, and
You re-engaged Mr. Gray.
I did, yes. I
Okay.
asked him about that.
Right. So at this point in your investigation, did you have any reasonable or articulable suspicion that Mr. Gray committed, was committing, or was about to commit a crime or a violation of city ordinance?
At that point, I believed he might have been asking people for money due to him not answering my questions. So that's why I went back out and re-engaged with him. I thought we had something maybe stirring up.
So at this point, you're still thinking panhandling is a city ordinance
Yes.
violation?
Yes.
And you're acting on that assumption
Yes.
to try to continue the investigation?
Yes.
Okay. Who did you call on the phone when you went inside the business?
I called Officer.
And what did you tell him?
I said that, hey, we have the business owner is stating that this is what's going on, and the male is not answering any questions. And at that point, I was just going for maybe a senior officer to come and try to help me work through the situation.
Okay. So you told him some of the details of what was
Yeah, I
happening?
told him what the business owner just told me, and that at this point, I just need someone else to kind of hear the stories and work through it and see what we have.
Okay, so when Officer Beatty arrived, did you go meet him?
I did, yes. I
And-
gave him a rundown of what was going on and what
Okay.
the business owner told me and what the male was actively doing at that point.
Okay, can you describe Officer Beatty's initial contact with Mr. Gray?
He was asking him the kind of the same questions I was, kind of starting over the process. And then when he didn't want to identify himself, that's when he kind of went, instead of talking to the business owner, he kind of went hands-on with Mr. Gray. And at that point, I usually like when we investigate other crimes and stuff like that, we listen to both sides of the stories, come back, talk to each other, and I don't know where that happened. Maybe because he was frustrated with him.
Okay. Do you think that would have been a more prudent course of action to continue the investigation and figure out what's going on?
I do, yes.
Did you hear Officer Beatty tell Mr. Gray that if he didn't identify himself, he was going to go to jail?
I did, yes.
Okay. Okay, I want to go over the policy and procedure directive. I know you've probably read it. I did want to bring to your attention that, you know, the record shows that you read that on Power DMS on April 28th of 2021. That's when you read it and signed it. The directive itself, in the section that I already enumerated that talks about investigative detention, it says an officer is permitted to stop and briefly detain a person for investigative purposes if the officer has a reasonable suspicion supported by articulable facts that criminal activity may be afoot, even if the officer lacks probable cause. Such encounters must be evaluated by considering the totality of the circumstances. Investigative detention should last no longer than is necessary to effectuate the purpose of the stop. The investigative methods employed should be the least intrusive, reasonably available to verify or dispel the officer's suspicion in a short period of time. Any investigative detention must conform to current law. Current law, you know, that governs it in the state of Florida is Florida statute 901.151. Are you aware of that? Stop and frisk statute.
Yes, sir.
It's referenced as a reference point in this directive under the attachment section that basically says the same thing. Do you understand that directive?
I do.
Okay. So with that in mind, and what you know now, I'm going to ask you in retrospect, after reviewing everything, all the body-worn camera videos, his videos, the YouTube videos, the documents and stuff, would you like to make a statement about what you know?
Like about the whole situation.
Yeah, about, yeah.
I definitely think that we probably, that's why when I was on scene, I didn't go hands-on. I didn't tell him he was detained. I didn't say anything like that. I didn't ask him if he had any weapons on him. At that point, there just wasn't like a big idea in my head for me. That's
Okay.
why I called for Officer Beatty. I know he's had a couple years on the road, so he's the senior officer to me, my zone partner. I called him, and I definitely think that when he got there, that the course of action he took probably was not the best one because he wasn't able to get both sides of the story. And I kind of wish that we would have went back and had him talk to the business owner, and then have him talk to me. I was like, hey, this is what the business owner told me. What did he tell you?
Right.
Like, what do we have here now? And I think that we skipped over that step, and he went straight to going hands-on with him instead of going through the business owner,
Right.
see what we have,
Okay.
and then coming back to me and saying, hey, this is what he told me.
Okay.
And kind of see the differences and see if we can work out with the business owner what was going on.
So you calling him to the scene, if I understand you correctly, you were counting on his experience to try to help resolve this situation.
I was, yes.
Okay, in your view now, in retrospect, do you believe panhandling is a crime or a city ordinance violation?
No.
Do you believe that carrying a sign that says "God bless the homeless vets" on a public sidewalk, is there any crime or violation there?
No, sir.
Is there any crime or violation by a person that's carrying a concealed weapon lawfully with a concealed weapons permit?
No, sir, as long as it's valid.
Okay. So going back, what would you do different?
I'd probably go back in and kind of work through that myself, honestly. Go back to the business owner, be like, hey, this is what we have, this is what's going on, and probably just work that scene by myself. If he didn't want to identify himself, that's his right. Would have been like, hey, just to let you know, the business owner doesn't want you up in front of him. You're allowed to be on the sidewalk. This is a public sidewalk, but he doesn't want you talking to any employees and
Right.
anything like that. And at that point, I probably just let the matter be.
So if this gentleman continued to refuse and wasn't committing any violation, you would have what?
I probably would have got back in my car and contacted the supervisor, tell him, hey, this is what was going on, this is what we have.
Okay.
Just let him know that this dude matching like this description
Right.
was out in the street, and just in case a further incident occurred on Canal later that night,
Okay.
we could at least know that we were in contact with a male matching that description.
Okay. Do you think it would have been a good idea on your way to the call to check if a city ordinance existed for panhandling?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Do you have anything else to add?
No, sir.
Okay. This concludes the interview.
As each detail was placed alongside the others, another issue emerged. The boundary between the business property and the public sidewalk had never been clearly established at the scene. That uncertainty allowed an initial complaint to gradually become an examination of police authority, even though the legal basis had not been verified.
IA number 2021-006. Officer K. Beatty, ID number 1609. I am Lieutenant Mark Severance with the New Smyrna Beach Police Department. Today's date is Sunday, January 2nd, 2022, and the current time is 17:54 hours. The location of this interview is the Office of Professional Standards Conference Room, located at the New Smyrna Beach Police Department. Officer Beatty declined to have union representation or legal counsel present for this interview. Officer Beatty, are you aware this interview is being recorded?
I am.
I'm conducting an official administrative investigation concerning Group 2, Section M, violating the rules, orders, and policies issued and adopted by the City Commission, City Manager, and/or Department Head. Specifically, Policy and Procedure Directive 15-2, which is Preliminary and Follow-up Investigations, Section 15.2.7, Investigative Detentions. As a Florida law enforcement officer and notary public of the state of Florida, I am empowered to take sworn statements. At this time, I would ask that you raise your right hand to be sworn. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the statement you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
By this point, the mistake was no longer limited to a single statement. The officer had called for backup because he believed he was dealing with a violation. But when the second officer arrived, instead of gathering more information from both sides, the situation quickly shifted toward detention and control. That mistake was significant. This was the critical point.
Any false statement about material matters given by a witness under oath will constitute perjury, which is a third-degree felony according to Section 837.02 Florida statutes. Do you understand that if you knowingly make material misstatements of facts to me during this investigation, you will have committed the crime of perjury?
I do.
Okay, I'm going to sign this. And I need you to sign and date it down there. January 2nd, 2022. I know I'm going to mess that up writing it. Okay, the next document is the advisement of rights for a disciplinary hearing, otherwise called the Garrity warning. I wish to advise you that you are being questioned as part of an official investigation of the New Smyrna Beach Police Department. You will be asked questions specifically directed and narrowly related to the performance of your official duties or fitness for office. You are entitled to all rights and privileges guaranteed by the laws and the Constitution of this state and the Constitution of the United States, including the right not to be compelled to incriminate yourself. I further wish to advise you that if you refuse to testify or to answer questions relating to the performance of your official duties or fitness for duty, it will be considered an act of insubordination and a violation of a direct order by a superior or competent authority. If you do answer, neither your statements nor any information or evidence which is gained by reason of such statements can be used against you in any subsequent criminal proceeding, except for perjury or obstruction of justice charges. However, these statements may be used against you in relation to subsequent departmental charges. The aforementioned advisement of rights is not the warning in criminal cases under the Miranda decision. As mentioned, Miranda has no application in a disciplinary interview. You understand?
Yeah.
If you would sign date, and I'll write the location on there. Okay. For the record, please state your name, rank, and current duty assignment.
Officer Beatty, Smyrna Beach Police Department, patrol officer,
What shift do you work?
Delta or Bravo.
Bravo
sorry.
shift,
Yeah.
okay. Have you reviewed the USB drive files, documents, recorded interviews, YouTube videos, BWC videos, Central Dispatch radio recordings, etc. that I provided you on Monday, December 27th, 2021?
I did.
Okay, before we go any further, obviously everything in this particular incident is either captured on our video or the subject's video. So I don't think there's any dispute over what was said, who did what, and what happened at the incident. So as I ask you these questions, if you say something that doesn't agree with the video in the way it was said, I'm not making issue with that. We'll work through that if there's any inconsistencies, because there's no way you could possibly remember everything you said verbatim. Okay? So I just want to make that clear for the record. Okay, the first question is, did Officer Galt call you on the phone and request your assistance to a suspicious person call on Tuesday, December 14th, 2021 at the New Smyrna Brewery, which is 143 Canal Street?
I believe he did.
Okay, did you read the call notes while en route to that location?
Briefly.
What did they say?
Skimmed through them. I know we had a male out front of a business, and I believe that the call note says that he was panhandling on private property, but not at this time.
Okay. I think it said he was asking customers for money in front of the business and harassing customers, something to that effect. Okay. When you arrived at the scene, did Officer Galt meet with you and provide you information concerning the call before you spoke with the subject?
I believe I parked across the street.
Okay.
And as I walked across the street, we met halfway.
What did he tell you?
To my recollection, he just said that he wasn't cooperating, and I don't really think he said anything else besides that.
Okay. When you made contact with Mr. Gray, you confirmed that he was on a public sidewalk and told him the business said he was asking for money and that they had every right to have him move along. Is that correct?
I did.
Okay, that brings me to my next question. Is asking for money, or another way to call it, panhandling, in a public place, public sidewalk, is that a crime or a city ordinance violation?
To my knowledge now.
No, I want you to tell me what were you thinking.
When I came to the scene, when I came on scene, I did think we had a city ordinance. I swore we had a city ordinance.
Okay.
That you weren't allowed to panhandle. Even more so, because I could have sworn that I've been told to enforce that right underneath the Martin Luther King Bridge on the Lytle extension.
Okay.
The interview had now reached an important realization because the officer himself acknowledged what should have been done from the beginning. Check the law, verify the property boundaries, and clarify the complaint before restricting a person's freedom. Those basic steps could have changed what happened that night and prevented the situation from escalating.
I have been corrected since then.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. I know what you're talking about under the MLK. That's FDOT property. There is a Florida statute, 316-2045, I think, that deals with impeding traffic. It doesn't deal with what they're doing to impede traffic.
Right.
That's a statute, and under the bridge there, we have had FDOT trespass authority for that property, and it's my understanding, we've trespassed people from there and have maybe even made arrests for trespass after warning. Even though they were panhandling, they weren't arrested for panhandling, they were arrested for trespass after warning. Okay? All right, so You went on to say well, let me go back. The subject was subsequently identified as Jeffrey Gray. So I'm just going to call him Mr. Gray from this point on, okay? You went on to say that because you're there and they called about Mr. Gray, that we have to identify him. Is that correct?
That's correct.
What was Mr. Gray's response?
He pulled out refrigerator magnets out of his pocket.
What were they?
I and a D.
So that was his ID.
That was his ID.
Okay. Did you tell him that if he does not provide ID identification, that he would go to jail?
Yes.
Why?
Because at the time I thought we had a crime. I had the manager was standing right next to us, and he was saying that his waitresses were scared to come out and that they felt threatened and that he was on private property asking for money. And what I should have done was investigated that first
Okay.
before detaining him and moving him across the street.
Okay.
Because when I went back and asked the manager more particulars about what he was talking about, I believe it's my BWC video, I explained the whole thing to him. I'm like, none of that is illegal.
Okay. We'll cover that a little bit later as well. So up to this point, when you asked for ID, up to this point in your investigation, did you have any reasonable or articulable suspicion that Mr. Gray was committing, or was about to commit a crime or violation of city ordinance?
I did.
What crime were you thinking of?
That he was either trespassing or assault, but that's just based off of what the manager was saying. He was saying that his waitresses were being threatened, or felt threatened.
Okay. Yeah, I don't recall hearing anything about that from the person, but like I said, I'm not going to go over the video line by line about what was said, but it's a matter of record already. So, is holding a cardboard sign saying "God bless the homeless vets" on a public sidewalk, or asking for money, or panhandling a crime or city ordinance violation?
No.
You've learned that since this incident?
Well,
right.
for the panhandling part.
Okay.
I knew everything else was not.
Okay, so holding the sign on a public sidewalk, no issue, right?
No.
It didn't say anything about money or anything, okay. Did Mr. Gray ask if he was being detained?
Yes,
What did you tell him?
that he was.
Can you tell me why you decided to detain Mr. Gray?
Well, it was in front of a restaurant that was open and full, and I didn't want to make the scene because he was being not aggressive, just argumentative and defiant. So I wanted to take him across the street so that we can figure out what was going on without creating more of a scene
Okay,
in front of the restaurant.
so at this point, you're still under the impression that you're acting under your authority.
I 100% thought we had a city ordinance.
As you moved to detain Mr. Gray, did he tell you that he was armed lawfully and had a concealed weapons permit?
No. Yes and no. He said he was armed. He said that he was armed, but he didn't say anything about the concealed weapons permit until we got across the street.
Well, I have to correct you on that, because if you watch the video, he does say, "I'm armed," pauses for a second, "lawfully, and I have a concealed weapons permit,"
Okay.
as you were taking the sign from him. So that's a matter of record, that's what was said,
Yeah,
okay?
I'm not arguing with
Okay.
it. That's just my recollection
Okay.
of it.
Why did you seize the firearm before he was secured in handcuffs, or at all, if he was only being detained pending further investigation?
Well, at that point, because I thought he was committing a crime, otherwise I want to put him in handcuffs, that he's resisting without violence. I'm trying to conduct an investigation, and he doesn't want anything to do with it. He doesn't want to identify himself, so that's why I detained him. And if I'm detaining somebody, I'm not going to leave a weapon on them. If they're
Okay.
being lawfully detained, I wouldn't want to leave a weapon on them.
Okay, but wouldn't it be more prudent to handcuff him first and then deal with the weapon issue if you
I
felt
wasn't
compelled to do
handcuffing
that? Well, he was being handcuffed.
Right.
That had not been done yet, and you were already diving in his pockets.
Okay.
So, okay. All right. Why did you tell him his attorney is a court thing and not a police thing. Can you explain that?
We're not required to have an attorney present during our questioning. We're either conducting an investigation or we're conducting Miranda warning questioning, which
Well, if he's invoking his right to have an attorney present,
he doesn't have to speak.
true.
But I mean, I'm not calling you as a lawyer to
Right,
come to the scene
okay.
of the crime.
After you walk him across the street, did he advise you that you were violating his civil rights and to proceed cautiously?
Yes,
What was your response to that? Do you recall?
I don't recall.
Okay. After removing his handcuffs, did you again tell him that panhandling was against city ordinance?
Pretty sure I did.
Okay.
When the statements were compared with the video, a discrepancy became apparent. Mr. Gray had stated that he was legally armed and had a permit, but the officer's initial account did not fully recall those details. The firearm check took place before the restraint process was complete, causing the officer's handling of the situation to come under closer scrutiny during the investigation.
Panhandling on private property, I believe is what I said.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Did you speak with the reporting party inside the business?
Yes.
Can
Not
you just-
inside the business, it was in the front porch.
Can you describe your conversation with him?
I just asked him what he was complaining about, what was the problem with the mail. And he said that he was begging for money or asking customers for money on private property. And he said that he was standing in the same spot where I made contact with him at. So I went and explained to him that that wasn't private property, that was public.
So in his mind, there was a dispute over what the business owned and what was
Yeah,
public
so
property.
he pointed out that he thought he owned all the way up to where there's the curb. Basically, it's a large curb that hits like the telephone or the light poles.
Right.
But he thought he owned all that. And I pointed out to him down the street that Jason's corner
Right.
has a canopy that stops at their line,
Right.
which
So-
is a crease in the concrete.
So in liberal sense of the terms, their little sidewalk cafes where their tables are, sort of could be construed that that's the business property, or they're allowed to conduct business there, and then the rest of it is the public sidewalk.
Which
Would you agree?
is pretty clearly, I mean, it's,
Yeah.
the sidewalk was built, and then there's concrete between the building and
Yeah.
the sidewalk. So it's all one big piece of sidewalk, but you can see a line that goes straight down the side, and I
Okay.
explained that to him,
Okay. To who?
the manager that was
Okay.
outside.
All right. 'Cause I heard you explain it to Mr. Gray later as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. After speaking with the business employee, the manager, Axel's his name, was there evidence that any crime or city ordinance had been committed at that point?
No,
So your investigation resulted in that there was no crime, even assuming that your assumption that panhandling was a crime.
correct.
Okay.
He actually, when I asked him why, 'cause we get told that all the time, he threatened me, or she threatened me.
Right.
And so you ask what that is, and he said, well, he didn't really say anything to my waitress. She just is afraid to come back outside now because he's here.
Okay.
And I
Yeah.
said, well, that's not on him.
Right.
He's allowed to be where he's at.
Okay.
And
Fair
that's when I was done.
Did you call Sergeant Kirkland after the fact to advise him of the incident?
Yes.
Can you describe what his response was to you?
He immediately said, well, you violated every right he has.
Okay, I couldn't hear the other side of the conversation on the phone, but what do you mean by that? I mean,
That's just what he said. I told him what went down. I told him, the manager's saying this, and he's being defiant. So to get space between the manager and him, we detained him for the investigation, brought him over to my car, and then he's like, well, I hope he doesn't make a big deal out of this because you just, I don't know if he said what amendment, but he's like, you just violated his rights.
okay. I want to discuss with you a little bit about the Policy and Procedure Directive 15-2. The DMS record shows that you signed this off on 9/19 of 2020. Okay? This was published a revision of it was published in 9 of 20, so when the revision came out, you had reviewed it and signed it. Specifically, the section that we're talking about is 15.2.17, investigated detentions. It says, an officer is permitted to stop and briefly detain a person for investigative purposes if the officer has a reasonable suspicion supported by articulable facts that criminal activity may be afoot, even if the officer lacks probable cause. Such encounters must be evaluated by considering the totality of the circumstances. Investigated detention should last no longer than is necessary to effectuate the purpose of the stop. The investigative methods employed should be the least intrusive means reasonably available to verify or dispel the officer's suspicion in a short period of time. Any investigative detention must conform to current law. I want to bring your attention that one of the current law that's applicable here is one of the attachments here. Well, there's several attachments, but the one I'm going to reference is Florida Statute 901151, which is Florida stop and frisk law. Okay, are you familiar with that?
We just read it.
Okay. So that being said, based on the facts of this incident as reviewed in this investigation, do you feel that you violated Policy and Procedure Directive 15-2 regarding that investigative detention?
At the time, I did not. Looking back at it and being peeled apart, yes, I should have investigated further, and if he wasn't going to move off the sidewalk, he doesn't have to move off the sidewalk. We could have taken the investigation inside the establishment, since they were the complainant anyways, and figured out what went down. And then afterwards I find out that Galt had already done all this, but I wasn't made aware of any of it.
So knowing what you know now, that the investigation has bared out, like I told you at the very beginning, the record is undisputed of what was said, what was done, and by everyone involved on video and audio. So knowing all that, and knowing now that there isn't any panhandling ordinance, there was no crime being committed, the investigation bore that out. If I'm understanding you right, with that fact, would you agree that the intent of the investigative detention was violated?
Yes.
Okay.
But if I had the knowledge that I have now, I would have never done that. That call would have went completely different.
Well, you have resources to tap into that knowledge. One, you can call your supervisor, right? Always. Two, you have access to MuniCode via your computer.
As the interview continued, it shifted from explaining the actions taken to acknowledging responsibility. The officer admitted that if he had known the facts at the time, he would have handled the situation completely differently. He would not have forced the man to provide identification, detained him, or turned a civil dispute into a confrontation.
You could check and see if panhandling is a violation or an ordinance before you even get there. Property issues can be checked on the property appraiser's website. Have you ever used that?
Yeah,
For
I'm
property
not,
lines?
Yeah, I mean, I knew the property lines.
Yeah. Okay.
But I'm not disputing the fact that I should have investigated prior to.
And I want to make it clear that this subject had no obligation to identify himself.
Absolutely not. He wasn't committing a crime.
Right.
He knew that.
Yeah.
I didn't. I thought he was.
Okay. In retrospect, after reviewing your actions during this incident, would you like to make a statement or add anything else to the record?
I think my record speaks for itself, and the community as a whole would testify on my behalf that this is what he's putting on video is not my normal actions. This is not how I conduct myself. I don't handcuff people and detain them illegally. I thought I had a crime, and therefore I thought I had the right to detain him because he wasn't IDing himself. So that when I had the crime, it would have been resisting, but I could have just left him there to himself, told him to keep his hands out of his pockets. Galt was there. Galt could just stood by while I did more investigating.
Okay.
I know what I should have. In looking hindsight, I see where I went wrong.
Okay.
But this is by no means the way I do business. I'm probably one of the more professional people in this department.
Okay, I just want to, the last thing I want to add is that, he was not committing a crime. Obviously, the facts bear that out. And you could have done things a lot differently. I appreciate your candor in answering the questions to the best of your ability. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, sir.
Okay. I don't have any further questions. This is still an ongoing investigation, so I'm going to ask you not to speak with anyone else about this except your union rep or a personal representative of your choice. Any other questions?
No, sir.
Okay, I'm going to terminate recording at this time.
Ultimately, the record did not show a criminal case ending with a conviction against the man who had been detained. Instead, the internal investigation determined that there had been no criminal conduct providing a basis for the detention. The officers acknowledged their mistakes, and the disciplinary interview concluded without leading to formal charges.